Hello. So for my prompt, I decided to do the one to talk about the developmental pathway of the ectoderm of the beetle that, at the end of the day, produced spikes. So to start off, I'm going to talk about the initial pathway and what it's kind of meant to do initially. I think it helps when kind of trying to discuss like these certain edits and kind of what they do. So initially, we have our white dye S, which will activate our blue and yellow dye P, which in turn activates our pink dye I, and I will attempt to inhibit K before K can inhibit E, and E is in charge of activating our spikes. So if K inhibits E, we do not have spikes, so we need our I, as we'll discuss later in our edits. So if they have spikes, I'm going to push one of these spiky shark teeth over to one of our edits here. So our first one is without P, so let's say if we do not have P, I cannot be activated. So if I is not there to inhibit K before K inhibits E, we do not have spikes because K is still inhibiting E when P is removed. So let's start over. If I is removed, I mentioned it earlier. So if we remove our pink dye I, there is nothing stopping K from inhibiting E, and E is in charge of activating our spikes. So without I, K can still inhibit E, and we have no spikes. So our next edit is we're missing our purple dye E and I. So already you can see that E, our main activator of our spikes here, is gone. So automatically that means you have no spikes because there's nothing there to actually activate our spikes. So that I and E will be no spikes as well. And our last edit, taking out our black dye K and S. So initially, if you look at the S side, it looks like it will lead to no spikes. But at the end of the day here, you have K taken out, which is our main inhibitor of E. So since E is not inhibited by K, you will actually have spikes with S and K. So that guy gets a shark tooth as our only edit with spikes. So one hypothesis that I had why some of these ectoderm cells in the beetle don't actually have spikes is because the ectoderm, as I've learned in biology classes, typically can form multiple things besides that outer layer of skin cells, or in our case, the shell of the exoskeleton of a beetle. So it can lead to internal organs or typically neurons of that brain. So you probably don't want your neuron cells or brain cells with spikes on them because I feel like that could be detrimental to the organism. So some things can be taken out like P, and in order to not make the spikes and save energy for the organism, because at the end of the day, that is what is important to these organisms.